Back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris Bluevin. My wonderful guest tonight is Captain Henry Kroll. And Henry, we have a few questions in the chat here. Let's see here. I've got, what does the guest know about the Thunderbolts project and Purple Dawn theory? And the Purple Dawn relates to how Saturn was the electrical node of our solar system, not the current sun. Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, James McCanney was the physicist that sort of came up with the idea of lightning bolts between the planets and that sort of thing. It's the electric universe, I think. Didn't he write a book on called The Electric Universe? I can't remember, but I read some of these articles, and I quoted him in the book too. But I don't know exactly how much potential is out there. I just know that our upper atmosphere has an excess of 3 to 12 million volts in the ionosphere above our planet, because I was involved in ionospheric research myself at one time. But, I don't, maybe in ancient times, it depends on what dust that our solar system happens to be passing through. There's all these star systems like your Sirius system or whatever, they have dust clouds around them. As we pass through them, of course, there may be more friction or conductivity, and so it could produce lightning bolts between the planets, but I have no idea. I've never seen one. But may have been one time looked like to the ancient people that there was war in heavens, and the gods were fighting each other, or something like that, with a tremendous electrical potential. But that's just all speculation. So it depends on where you are in space, and we could hit a new area of space in any moment now. Any second. Space is weird. They found clouds of beer in space. There's asteroids of pure platinum and gold out there. Many of the gold deposits on Earth probably aren't from Earth. There's a time when we were peppered with rocks that had gold in them. According to Immanuel Velikovsky's book, he told one chapter near the end of the book, it's only 100 pages. The chapter is only 2.5 pages long and a whole page and a half of references each chapter. So, he was translating ancient writings and other quotations. But, I wrote about the oil too, in my book, Cosmological Ice Ages. There's 3 ways that oil could be formed that I discovered. And the areas where they're drilling for oil on the North Slope, it's made instantly. It's called the caravan effect. The reason I call that is because I got this letter from Jean Lenard over in France, and I corresponded with Jean back and forth several years. And he knows William Henry. William Henry's a famous author and wrote about the Ark of the Covenant and different things and how they could possibly hide it in a higher dimension in those churches.
Right.
They have these copper mazes on the floor and a big lodestone on a pendulum swinging over the maze. And each time this magnet covers across these copper maze, it generates some kind of low-frequency electricity. And we don't know what else. Maybe some kind of weird dimensional portal there. But William Henry wrote all this stuff about the Ark of the Covenant and this and that. I wrote also on it that I'm convinced it's filled with ORMs, orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, which are combined atoms of gold and platinum group metals that they took out of the soil, and they ate it. They're not the metals itself; they're just combined atoms, and we use it for cell division in our own bodies. Mitochondria are able to transmute it because they have weak atomic forces. They're combined atoms. The protons push apart. But anyway, Jean Lenard sent me pictures of William Henry and him walking around at various churches in the southern part of France. And he's a chemist. And how he got my name and how he figured out I was writing a book on plotting our course through space and how oil was formed, I have no idea. I'm way over there on the west side of Cook Inlet talking on a phone to a friend of mine. Maybe he's connected with the NSA for all I know.
Probably.
But, I don't know how he got my address even, but anyway, I wanted to go visit him. He was a strange little chemist guy over there and lived in a nice house, and never did get over there. So
that would have been interesting.
anyway,
Yeah.
he says this. Well, this oil up there in the North Slope, when the moon hit, there were layers of diatomaceous earth down there, or calcium carbonate limestone, and there's also layers of water down there, underneath in the rock, and you got to have carbon, and then you have to mass it really quick and combine the hydrogen with the carbon to create hydrocarbons. You have to connect the carbon with the hydrogen some way or another. And it takes a lot of heat and pressure, and it's done under the Earth's crust in various places, possibly. They call that abiotic oil, but I don't believe that. It's being formed all the time, they say, in the core of the Earth somewhere. But it's more like these layers of carbon that are put down by plants in photosynthesis from light. They didn't come from the sun, by the way. And they have to unite the carbon real quick with a meteor impacts. Most of your major oil fields are in ancient meteor impact zones, like in the North Sea, and also in the Middle East. It took the layers of carbon and hydrogen down there and just massed it together really quick and made oil. But then there's other places, like around Los Angeles. You got limestone plates that are being subducted down into the lithosphere. It's a very hot magma down there, and there's water down there too, superheated steam and water and hydrogen, and it unites the hydrogen with the carbon, so you got hydrocarbons coming up all the time, and they keep pumping oil around Los Angeles there all the time because it keeps bubbling up. It's a little lighter than the surrounding material, and the rock that's down there and everything, so it's just constant production of oil. But you realize that all of the carbon, by the way, was laid down by photosynthesis and light, and the Earth had a high-pressure carbon atmosphere. So if you burn it all and you turn it all back into CO2, we're not going to be able to breathe. We need the oxygen, and so we shouldn't really be burning it all up. And then, of course, plants could use the CO2. That's plant food, by the way. Without CO2, you got to have some. It's only 0.033%. If you look it up in Google, what the percentage of carbon dioxide is right now, it's not even 1% of our atmosphere. It's a trace gas. It's 0.033%, or some say 0.04. It's hundredths of 1%, or tenth of 1%. Half a tenth of 1% of what it is, 0.04. So, nobody bothers looking that up. They just listen to the propaganda about how bad CO2 is. Now it causes global warming. Well, global warming is great. You can grow food. You get more carbon in the air up to a point. And, the pot growers, they know all about growing stuff with carbon dioxide. They put propane burners in their greenhouses to release CO2 in there and keep it a little warmer. The plants grow much better because they got more food to eat.
Interesting stuff.
Just basic stuff, really. But everybody, they believe that the mainstream news is carbon dioxide is really bad and causes global warming, and we're all going to die and all that. Well, I'd like to see some oranges and apples growing around here and some bananas, maybe.
Yeah. Seems like they're on a self-destruct course anyway.
Parts of the world, maybe, I don't think parts of the world are going to be uninhabitable, in the 10 years, like some of the people are saying, on the mainstream stuff.
Well, the biggest problem I see, Henry, is just the people. The people are crazy right now. I mean, not everybody, but there are a lot of insane people just, polarizing. There's a lot of violence, way too much. Yeah, that's what I see. I think mankind's just going to destroy himself, period, regardless of the environment. So that's just my own take on it.
Up here, we got almost a murder every day in the city of Anchorage now. Almost a murder just about every day now.
Wow.
We had 20 or so last year, 25 or something like that. Now it's just ridiculous. But most of that is the fault of the government engineering. They don't allow the natives that come from the villages. They wind up on the streets. The kids are out there, and they get in trouble, and they put them in jail. And they build more jails, and they hire more prosecutors and more cops. Our mayor of Anchorage hired 100 new policemen. He needs a few more right now, but he's almost got 100.
Jeez.
And that's not going to solve the problem. You see,
Mm-hmm.
they create this recidivism or this planned euphemism of various populations. Almost half the population in Anchorage is Oriental. I have a demographic study in my wastebasket. I tossed it in there earlier today of the various races of people living in Anchorage.
Mm-hmm.
They just create the problem because they get more jobs for government workers and for the state, and that's not what we should be doing. We need to have more jobs for the people out there and produce more food and more independence for worthwhile lives.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's becoming really crazy.
Yeah, I know. It's just the grandkids are out on the street racking up criminal records. They're going to spend the rest of their life in jail, I guess.
Well, I think every state is going through its own issues too, and that's the saddest part. I think there's an escalation in crime in every state, even where I live. So, yeah, that's a problem. And you're right. They're just
they fight
go ahead.
crime. Yeah. Well, they just keep fighting crime by hiring more police and then creating more of these jails and more systems. And then of course nowadays they got put the pressure on the people with all this propaganda and stuff that they go crazy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to hire more counselors and more get them on opioids, and then you have more drug rehab centers and all this stuff. It just goes on
they
and
create
on,
the problem. It's a virus out of control. It really is.
Yeah,
that's the way I see it.
Problem reaction creation scenario where you create a problem and then you try to solve it by hiring more bureaucrats or something like that. It's just not sustainable after a while, because, Rome fell or something. Ancient Greece fell when 10% of the population became bureaucrats. Rome got up to about 15%. I think we're about closing in on 20% here in Alaska right now.
Wow.
So
it's
it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 10 years or so.
Well, yeah, that's
concerning.
So I've
been trying to get more land into private hands. That's all I'm trying to do is right now.
I hope you can succeed.
The borough and everybody else, it's insane what they're doing.
Well, they're doing the same thing in every state, and that's the problem we're running into in this is being gutted. The whole country's being gutted, sold to the highest bidder. And you're talking about the prisons, those are all privatized. Most of them are. So that's the problem also. That's a big moneymaker.
Right. And the judges have their pension plans invested in Prison Corporation of America, So it's a sure thing. The more guys they put in prison, the better their pension plan looks,
Yeah,
anyway.
Sad.
Also, another thing I got kind of involved in, I used to have a bigger boat. It was, I still have the Brisk, which is 42 foot. I tender salmon with that in the summer usually. I may be doing that again. I don't know. I have the boat sold to a guy from the Pribilof Islands. I don't really know yet. But anyway, I used to have a 72-foot boat. I ran it to Seattle twice and rebuilt the boat and put a new cat engine in myself and ran it north. And I got in a heck of a big storm, 100-foot waves, and I had my wife and kids on there, and we survived.
Wow.
And anyway, the history of that boat is really interesting, and I just never was able to put two and two together on it until about a year ago. But there was a guy named Rocky Roswell owned the Mary M, which the name of my boat was Mary M. It was made to sing a herring out of San Francisco in southeastern Alaska. It was a herring seiner. And anyway, he had it rebuilt at Maritime Shipyard in Lake Union in Seattle in the 1950s. And he'd take it to Nome, Alaska, which is a long run up into the Bering Sea from Seattle. Every summer, he'd run up to Nome. He lived in Cordova, Alaska, near Prince William Sound. And anyway, he'd run over there, and there was a whole fleet of boats upside down with their landing craft, 130-foot long landing craft with caterpillars and cats on there, and graters chained to the deck, and they're upside down in 60 feet of water. And Rocky was a hard hat diver. He'd go down there and cut the chains loose and refloat these barges. Then he had a crew of Jimmy mechanics, 2 or 3 guys on there that they'd swap parts around. They're triple screw landing craft, and they're he'd salvage these boats, and he'd head for Dutch Harbor with black smoke pouring out of the engines. They're burning 1940s fuel. They're sunk in the 40s sometime, and he's salvaging them in the 50s. And he'd get $100,000 a piece for these barges, and they're triple screw, 3671 Jimmy diesels in there. And they're still around today. A lot of these same landing craft there's a couple down in Homer. Otto Kilcher is on the YouTube. You find the Kilcher Ranch there. YouTube there have one, and he took some people down to Pearl Island with it, one of their videos that they took. But anyway, I finally realized that all that equipment, he got about a dozen of those barges over the years, and he sold them for $100,000 each. And he'd tow one behind the Mary M, get two of them some years, and bring them to Kodiak and to Dutch Harbor and sell them. Well, all that equipment, that was to build a road to Nome. And they built that Elkhorn Highway in 8.5 months to Anchorage, Alaska, and to Fairbanks. But they would have built it to Nome, but they lost all their equipment underwater up there. And it was surveyed, apparently, in 1944. So if you had that road to Nome, everybody in the world would probably want to drive that road over to Nome and then take a ferry over to Russia and drive across Europe, or take the train. And, we'd have tourism up here. It would quadruple tourism, or maybe even more. You get maybe 10 times more tourism. Mm-hmm. You'd have employment for people, and it would open up the country. The gold miners could have more access, smaller miners, to the minerals and other things. Maybe even some oil and gas exploration more. And, really open up the country quite a bit. But the only way we can do that now, we got so many governmental restrictions, you'd have to have the Army do it, the federal government. And I've talked to Don Young, our senator there, about getting that done. I wrote him letters. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump, and put a letter in my latest book, Make Alaska Great Again. A couple of them I wrote Donald Trump, and I don't know if you ever read them or not, but we really need to finish that road. We get so much tourism up here, it would be unbelievable. People drive up with their campers, and, see but it wouldn't benefit the government a whole lot, but there would be beneficial for the people that live here and everyone else.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
Import things.
Mm-hmm.
We can import things from Russia, like vodka or whatever.
It's always good.
We take our produce over there that we produce, maybe some potatoes or something,
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I've been working on, is trying to get that done. And I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I didn't figure out what that equipment is for until about a year ago. But I owned a boat for 13 years, and I ran it all over the country, fished crab with it, put in 3 million pounds of king crab, Kodiak and Homer and Seldovia.
Nice. So how's the fishing right now? I mean, how's everything going over there?
Well, we have no crab, and that was all killed off by oil wells.
Wow.
So, and oil tankers, they bring in ballast water for 30 years, and the laws against dumping ballast water was only a $500 fine. And then I realized state waters only went out to 3 miles offshore, so they just pump it out as they're running up Cook Inlet to take on oil. We had 2 tankers a day, 10 million gallons of ballast water taken out of Los Angeles and Honolulu, Hawaii, and other polluted harbors. They bring it to Alaska, and it's got nematodes and algae and bacteria in it, billions of bacteria, and it's foreign to this area. So crab and shrimp and Dungeness crab, tanners, all that spawn in shallow water. So anything that spawned in the shallow water they couldn't survive because the plankton blooms were altered by foreign organisms and algae that sucked up the oxygen in the water. And the clams, we used to have so many clams on the beaches. When I was a kid in Seldovia, you could walk down the beach and they squirt up in the air. They're bigger than your hand. They're white, hard shell clams. They're so healthy they can't even get their clamshell closed, be a fringe sticking out around the edges. Mm-hmm. And they squirt 3-4 feet in the air, and you get your pants wet walking down the beach, even with hip boots on. So, but there's nothing there now. it's all brown slime
Oh, that's a
because
shame.
everything was altered.
That's just
It was,
terrible.
you dig a hole a little bigger than a 5-gallon bucket, and you could fill a bucket all over half full with those big white clams. And the beaches were alive. There were centipedes and worms and everything crawling around when you dug into the beach. There's snails and everything was moving. And now there's nothing but brown slime and rock and dirt,
Oh,
So,
wow.
the whole ecosystem changed.
Mm-hmm.
Some people blame it on the sea otters eating all the crab, but they didn't explode population sea otters until later after the crab were already gone. And so I'm convinced it had to be, you got to do the math, and we had 2 oil tankers a day, for 300 days a year, 20 million gallons a day, 30 years, and then we had 8 blowouts.
Wow.
We had 8 oil well blowouts. Some of them were very bad. They're little 1,200, 1,500 foot in the air, natural gas and oil for a week, and then simmered down to 500 foot above the rig tower for one entire month, one of them. And there's other ones caught on fire. There was a oil well on fire by south of Anchorage a little ways for, 10 years or more. And the airlines were using it as a beacon to find Anchorage.
Jeez.
For a good 10 years.
A mess.
But it didn't. It was just burning away there, just gas, mostly natural gas. It's a tremendous pressure down there, 10,000 feet down. Right where the cannery is, where I used to bring my fish, they put a well in there, and it caught fire. I remember driving by there. You had to roll your car window up and drive a little fast right along the road. Otherwise, it'd blister the paint on your car. The heat from the fire there, the flames. And they had to call Red Adair in from Texas to put that one out with dynamite. But they eventually got it out. It burned for about a year or two. They couldn't put it out.
Jeez. That's a long time. A lot of craziness. Tell you what.
Oh, yeah. It's just greed and money, big money. They want all that money now. They took billions, maybe $1 trillion out of here since statehood. And then we're just left holding the bag,
Yep.
So
No doubt.
it's we need to develop our roads and our resources a little bit so that the people can earn a living and create businesses and work on their own, But they don't want that because it's like their little club here. So we had a governor named Sarah Palin. She was elected a few years ago. And she called the FBI in on the former administration there. And under the Murkowski administration, they're bringing in drugs from Canada, cocaine and other drugs. And some of the guys are putting it in their suitcases, and they're taking these direct flights down to Las Vegas or whatever. And they don't expect suitcases leaving Alaska for drugs, why would they? So, But anyway, they called the FBI in, and I copied all of the arrests and stuff in my book, Make Alaska Great Again, and just copied it off of Google there. As the first chapter is listed everybody there. And so I just email it to all our senators and representatives every year. And the second chapter is all the judges and prosecutors and their criminal records. They got arrested. They've been molesting women in the police station and things. One woman sued the state and got $1 million. One got $3 million. It's all on Google. You just type in the most corrupt state. Anyone can go online and get this stuff. It's just weird, And so I just cut and pasted the whole thing in the second chapter, and then I finished it up with all the oil pollution and things, how we lost the resource, because I'm trying to make them understand where we are, really. And they live in this fog world where they think they're just going to sell off billions of dollars and just retire in Palm Springs or someplace, but
right.
It doesn't
I don't
work
think they
that way
care.
anymore.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. I just don't think they care. They'll just do it because they can. A lot of these people, a lot of the corruption is it's so multi-layered. It's almost virtually impossible to get rid of it, but I'm glad you're addressing it.
Yeah, and they just want to hire more of these guys, and these are the dumb ones that got caught, too. There's 7 pages of it in the book just articles in newspapers and fines and different jail times, and one woman got $750,000 and different other things. Just all these little domestic violence by the troopers, et cetera, et cetera. They don't like to see that stuff, but those are all the dumb ones that got caught. The smart ones are still out there doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got to understand, So it's pretty bad, I think Louisiana was the most corrupt state. If you just type in most corrupt state into Google, Hawaii maybe number 2 or Alaska number 3.
Really? Hawaii? Wow. Just check that out.
Anyway, check it out.
Yeah, that's wild. Well, it's just, like I said, there's a disease that seems like there's no cure for. That's cynical, but...
Well, there's a cure, but you got to make people understand what's happening. That's the thing. It's education, and then they'll maybe ease off a little bit. This is what I'm thinking. If we could get the word out there some way to.
And then fire everybody, get their pensions. Just get them all. That's something we need to look at.
So Sarah Palin turned them into the FBI, and they filed 22 lawsuits against her, and we lost their governor. They stole her governor. She had to move down to Arizona and lived down there, bought a house, and stayed out in Alaska just to keep from getting served.
Wow.
Whether the lawyers fought it out. And then she had a nonprofit, Sarah PAC, where people could donate money to help fight the lawsuits, but I don't know. She ran for vice president under McCain, which I think McCain's nuts personally, but
he is insane. McCain,
a good idea, but
they're all crazy.
That's just my opinion. It's not...
No, I agree with you. I mean, my opinion too. I think they're nuts. It's like Slim Pickens.
Yeah, well, he's been through a lot. I'd be crazy too if I went through everything that he went through. I was just saying offhand there, but I don't know if I'd want him to be president.
Well, yeah, it's wild. Crazy world.
So anyway, I got a DVD in the mail yesterday. There's a book out written in the 1800s about a kid that went to the center of the earth named Donald Trump, or Baron Trump.
What?
And it talks about a very synchronistic, So apparently Donald Trump's uncle was a scientist.
Oh, right, yeah.
His name right offhand. And they gave all of Tesla's papers to him, and he was over in one of the universities over there, East Coast. What the heck was it? Not Harvard, but the other one, I think. But anyway, he was working there, and he tried to understand all of the things to Tesla's death ray, Nikola Tesla's death ray, and other time travel and that sort of thing. So maybe he got into the time travel. So it's possible that they wrote the book in the 1800s, predicting the future of Donald Trump being president, or vice versa. And all of this stuff is really weird. I mean, the whole thing is scenarios there, and it's out there. You can find it on YouTube too.
What's the name of it again?
Well, Donald Trump's. There's a book written in the 1800s. I can't really tell you how to look it up on YouTube. You have to search around, and Baron Trump, his son, was going to be the last president. Or you can just type in the last president, maybe find it that way. So, but it's a fictional story, or maybe it's a prediction of the future. We don't know. Very odd.
Interesting. Well, the Tesla technology is pretty phenomenal, bottom line, but it's all been weaponized, as we all know. So, anything can go, anything can happen.
Maybe Donald Trump's uncle discovered or manipulated time travel and fixed it so he could become president and save the world. Or blow it up, one or the other. I'm not sure which, but we'll find out, I guess.
I don't know. Just spin the wheel. We'll figure it out, right? At this point, I think it's it's roulette. Every day is roulette, but it's interesting. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, I did hear that in the news a long time ago. I'll have to look that up.
So then Donald Trump saves the world, or the last president. Anyway, there's got another DVD. This guy lived 256 years in China. He fathered, he had 22 wives and fathered 200 children or something like that. And he's 256 years and died a few years ago. And he was a herbalist, walked around in the mountains. You can find him on YouTube too. He looks like he's over 200 years old.
Mm-hmm.
His face is all shriveled up, and he has no teeth or anything, and his eyes are just barely open. And anyway, he hired other people within the last 50 years or so to form a company, and they would gather these herbs. And he ate goji berries and Gouda cola and ginseng. He kind of lived on that stuff. And
That's good for you.
I actually had found some goji berries over there in GNC store here in Soldotna, but I had some Gouda cola and pills here, so I've been taking those.
Mm-hmm. That's good for you, though.
It worked for him, might work for me. I don't know.
That's good stuff.
Strange.
And they're cracking down on all that, too.
Just,
the herbs and homeopathic medicine. Seems like a big problem there.
Our legislature recently is passing a law to liberalize the health food industry here, the health food stores, so they don't have to, the herbal, So maybe that'll help. I don't know. But anyway, there's a lot of strange things happening right now. It'd be interesting to see what the future's like.
Well, it looks kind of grim unless people get it together on a level of consciousness. In my opinion, I think they need to step it up and balance technology and spirituality, or some level of consciousness where they're becoming more evolved. Because to me, it seems like they're just going backwards. They're just going in reverse. And even the mainstream, academia is a joke. Educational systems are flawed. I mean, I can go on and on. I'm sure you can resonate with that, but it seems like it's just going out of control, and I don't know what else to do anymore. But just observe it as a sacred witness. But I'm glad you're out there talking about it. I know I have been too. But man, oh man, it's just getting so strange.
Well, the solution to the problem is we got to go back to a more what they call it, agronomy society, where you grow things and have the kids tending to animals and working in the greenhouses and stuff, and growing our own food, and more being in touch with the land. You see, we're losing. You lose your soul if you're not in touch with the land, and you just wander around like a ship adrift on the streets. It's just not good. And you have to have land ownership for any kind of free society. That's just the way it is. And if we're on the wrong evolutionary path, it's we're just going to have to get back to the land. And I'm not advocating that everybody do that, but all the kids are land ownership is very important. But they tax you out of your land here. If we had more of it under more people on the land, then they wouldn't need so much tax. And also, they bus the kids everywhere. They got schools, 4 or 5 schools right around here, and they got buses passing one another in different directions. And you got your kids out there on the highway exposed to traffic and accidents and that sort of thing. And maybe homeschooling would be an option if they had small farms, you see. We homeschooled our kids. Our daughter, Sarah, she went to Anchorage for those academic decathlons and won a whole fistful of gold medals and silver medals. Governor Tony Knowles presented the medals to her, and he asked her if you related to Henry Kroll.
Oh, really?
Tony Knowles and I didn't get along very well. He was one of our former governors. He's a Democrat, so he's more for government control than anybody else. So he stole our fishery up here, gave it away to the feds, the halibut fishery, the management of it anyway. Anyway, he's gone. He doesn't have a political career anymore. He's got, So we're stuck with this other lawyer, that's Exxon lawyer. The last 2 governors have been Exxon lawyers.
Really?
Governor of Valdez, yeah. So all they want to do is drill more wells and pay off the oil companies. They were supposed to build a gas pipeline, but I don't think that'll happen because there's no market for the gas. And they can't afford to build it. They're out of money. $3 billion shortfall, and this year and more next year, the state is. They got 3 million acres here they could sell for, $1,000 an acre. Something like that. There are 2 million acres of it, 1,000 an acre, 5-acre parcels, get it into production of food or something like that so we could survive. What if you guys had an EMP down there, disrupt all the internet, the phone service, everything, and the United States would come to a Kroll, or, North Korea detonated a nuke over the United States, all the electronics and everything wouldn't work anymore, except for maybe some of the phone lines that are on the fiber optic cables. But what if, we get in a war, or Yellowstone volcano erupts? The caldera up there was devastating millions of years ago. That would destroy all the food crops in the United States. They wouldn't ship any food up here. You guys will be starving down there too,
Right, yeah.
It'd be very bad.
It's a good idea right now is to grow something. You need to grow it in your own house. Yeah. Well, anything can happen at this point.
We're in,
Yeah, I think that self-sufficient is a big deal, no doubt about it, and also being pretty, educate yourself about what's going on here in this world. But they have lost touch. There's no compass. There's no compass connected to the earth. There's no compass connected to even spiritual compass or celestial compass, I call. There's just nothing there for a lot of these people. And, man, it's concerning. But I've seen it in my own state. I watch it deteriorate. Past 3 years, I've seen it go into the gutter. And it's disgusting. You watch what used to be nature and the beauty of the trees and the environment become just completely saturated with, an abuse of so many things, So I don't know. I don't want to get cynical about it, but I would say one thing, it needs to change rapidly, and we can't wait until, 10, 20 years from now for this to change. That's the problem. They're sitting on stuff.
Yeah, the only resource that we have left over for the people here now is salmon, and they're screwing that up some way or another. They got dip netters with 400 skiffs with outboards on it, 450 horse outboards running up and down the first 6 miles of the river, the Kenai River, and that's 2,000 horsepower intermittently, which washes some of the silt down off the banks of the river. It's really fine silt. It plugs the salmon's gills as they swim through this thick silt cloud. And then I did some calculations on, 150 horse outboard, turning an average of 2,000 RPM average. High speed, they go up to 8,000 RPM when they're going full fast, but say you average it out 2,000. 50 cubic inches times 2,000 per minute, and then you multiply that per hour, and 12-hour days, and then 30 days they do this dip netting thing. It works out to 28 million cubic feet of carbon monoxide pumped into the water, and that's one carbon and one oxygen atom, and it's poisonous. If you don't believe me, you lock your car in the garage and sit in it and start it up and see what happens. So, that goes into the bloodstream of the fish. They got to pump their gills harder to breathe as they swim upstream for 6 miles. And we don't know what that's going to do to the eggs in the salmon, because it probably goes into the bloodstream and goes into the eggs. Is it going to retard the fish? Or are they going to look weird or what? They don't know. The biologists have no clue. They don't even think about these things. They can't seem to reason or something. I don't know. The city people, all they want is to sell parking space for all of the motorhomes that come down from Anchorage. We had 40,000 or 20,000 people the last couple of years, 30,000 I think last summer, and they have no parking space at all. They're parking in farm yards and everywhere for their motorhomes, and the skiff launch ramps are just jammed, lined up. They can't even get their boats in the water.
It's ridiculous.
The city of Kenai has a huge area that they put chalk lines out for parking motorhomes and boats and stuff. A huge lot. I guess it's several acres. I'd say 10 acres, maybe 15. And they plugged that whole thing up. I was there last summer and I saw this. I couldn't believe it. And so this is not going to be good with all the pressure on the fishery, and there's so much politics. The sport fishermen outnumber the commercial guys, so they all want to continue this. They have you got a natural right to a fish. Well, you get all these people coming in, there's not going to be enough fish. They're just going to kill them off. That'll be the end of this stuff. So
And
there
they
won't
still
be
don't check
anything
for
left.
radiation, right? I mean, we talked about Fukushima before when you've been on the show, and I'm wondering about if they're even radiation oriented. Is there a high level of radiation with the fish or not?
Well, yeah, I'm
They
not
don't check,
sure.
right?
That's another topic.
I know.
Well, they they did say in the newspapers of last year that there isn't any noticeable trace increase of radiation, but the king salmon, they're larger fish. They weigh up to 50, 60 pounds, and they go out further into the ocean than any other species of salmon, and they stay out there up to 8 years. And the plankton bloom out there, the plant plankton, and then the zooplankton come along and eat the plant plankton. And then you got other that concentrates any radiation that the plants pick up. And then, of course, you got your little needlefish and your herring, and they eat the zooplankton. That concentrates it again, maybe 8 to 1 or 10 to 1, whatever. And then the king salmon come along and eat the herring and the needlefish, the little feeder fish.
Mm-hmm.
And they live out there for a long time, up to 8 years. So, how long has it been since Fukushima erupted? Those kings that are out there now that are coming in have been out there for all those years eating that stuff. So when the tourists come and eat them, then we can probably find them with a Geiger counter, maybe, the tourists.
Mm-hmm. No kidding. No kidding.
I don't know. These are a lot of unknowns here. So,
Nothing's being regulated
just
anymore.
Speculation.
Yeah. But it's crazy.
You can't
your
regulate
website.
It's beyond in the hands of God. You can't regulate stuff anymore.
Exactly. It's all
That Fukushima
crazy.
thing was a disaster. And it's beyond any kind of human regulation or help. They discovered. Well, when Chernobyl, went off, they found that pot and hemp helped mop up the radiation in the soil better than any other plant. It seemed like they were planting cover crops and stuff. There was a time there where you didn't want to eat apricots and dried apricots from Europe, and peaches and pears, because of the Chernobyl thing.
Right. Are you still selling your books? You both have your books on sale for the guarddoogbooks.com and Alaska Publishing?
I don't have Alaska Publishing anymore. I just have Guard Dog Books.
Okay.
And there's articles that I put up there recently. Also, there's a game on there that my son programmed. It's a Rubik's Cube online. It took him about 2 days to do the software and another week to get the bugs out where it works really good. If you solve the puzzle, it'll give off fireworks.
Cool.
And also, there's also a couple of books. There's several books that you can download. You click on the cover. There's a green book. It's written in 1878. And it's a recipe book written by 500 women. It contains 1,000 recipes. And it's an old book compiled by the Chicago Tribune, I believe, the newspaper. And it's one of our books that we scan and, put up there so that anyone can download it.
That's great.
And there's also a little red cover book. It's a cruising manual for guys that want to camp out and be out in the bush and learn how to prospect and trap and find gold and survey land and this sort of. It's written by an A. Wallace in 1910. So, these are collector's items that you can't get anywhere else.
That's right. Yeah, I encourage people to access that. That's one thing about your information. You have a lot of data. I hope people access your website and read your books because you have so much information, especially with the cosmological ice ages. It's very impressive. And you're talking about so many different topics tonight, but I'll tell you what, people really should read the book. And not just once. They need to read it more than once so you understand on a different scale what's happening here. It's really fascinating.
I've had guys read it. I've had people read it, and they say it's good, but it needs editing. And I didn't have a professional editor to help me on it, so I had to do it myself. I just wanted to get the information out there. It has the second part of the book has ways you can travel to other planets possibly using available technology. And also some later information, that's. And then I just wanted to get it out there mostly because, I wanted to know where the oil or where the carbon energy came from on this planet. It's very important to know whether or not you should be burning the stuff. I thought at least you should know where it's coming from or how it was made. If you don't know that, what do you know? And they still don't know how oil's made. They think it's made by bacteria. Some people, but it's it really
blood
silly.
of the earth. Yeah. Well, they called it the blood of the earth, I thought, a long time ago. The oil. But
well, they used to tell us that it was made with dinosaurs when we were kids in school, but
yeah, well,
it's beyond the kindergarten age, I think,
That's what I mean by the whole school system is backwards anyway. These kids have been brought up with the wrong data. That's most of the problem we're running into right now. It's ridiculous, but yeah, thinking outside the box is a good idea about now. There's no doubt about it.
Well, Nikola Tesla hired a high school dropout recently. He worked with him. He's a really super bright engineer. He got out of school right away. He couldn't, at 14, I think he just couldn't handle it anymore, dropped out, and he just went on his own, and a real brilliant guy, scientist. So, the school system messes you up somewhat, and I enjoyed high school, and I had could do the chemistry and chemistry labs and all that, and the physics I liked, but I was the only one that could install a ventilation fan in the chemistry lab. The other guys couldn't figure out how to wire up a fan, I don't know. Had to mount it in a window, take a window pane out, and get the acid fumes out of the lab, basement of the school there. So
that's
anyway.
Funny. Hey, is your son still doing those experiments you told me about the last time you were on the show? You remember the experiment?
Yeah, we're trying to make graphene right now.
You are?
We're trying to make some graphene, I bought some powdered graphite, and I'm looking on YouTube of various methods that people are using to make graphene, and I'm hoping to, make a large sheets of this stuff, like 8 by 10 or something, and wrap it up into coils and make storage capacitors out of it. They got capacitors now that start large trucks, and they have no acid in them. They're very light, easy to transport, ship to Alaska or any place, and they're not a hazardous material. Whereas your sulfuric acid and stuff is like hazmat stuff. You got to have all kinds of regulations and stuff to put it in a truck and bring it over the highway. We can't fly it even. So anyway, this is what we're working on now is graphene, and it's I'm using my wife's sander, and you spread the graphite on the contact paper and sand it down into really fine to where there's no stickiness left on the paper. But you got to grind the carbon molecules down to 1 atom thick. But I'm leaving the contact paper up there as an insulator anyway, so it's for batteries or for capacitors.
It's excellent.
And we're experimenting with that right now.
I'll tell you, you know what, Henry, you were one of the hardest working people.
I'm also breathing a little bit of oxygen.
Yeah.
Once in a while I breathe my oxygen and helium. Just to impress the neighbors when they come over.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to say,
they think I'm crazy,
Well, they should be paying attention to you. I was going to say, you're one of the most, you're just the hardest working man I've ever seen. You really do. You're always going. And I appreciate that. It's just a lot of information you present. Plus, you know how to survive. And that's one of the biggest things. People need to pay attention to what you do because you really understand the mechanics of how to live.
Well, my wife wanted a washing machine today. So I indulged my wife, and I drove her down to Home Depot, and she bought one. And it was there on display, but they wouldn't give her the display one. Later on, I went back to pick it up, and they wouldn't give it to me.
Why?
At Home Depot. So she was all mad because she didn't get her washing machine. And now I got to go down and get the money for the check that she left for the washing machine. So.
That's interesting. They wouldn't give her the display. I wonder why, though. Strange. Usually they would.
Man,
it's the last one.
It's on display down there. We wanted one you could fill with a hose because we really don't have a lot of water pressure where we're at,
Right.
But anyway, so we'll figure something out. I think she ordered in one offline and going to be delivered here FedEx.
Well, good luck with that washing machine.
Anyway, I bought 21 sacks of steer manure when I was down there.
Oh, gosh. You are busy. I'll tell you what, at least the weather's kind of cooperating with you. And I want to let you know we're almost out of time in a few minutes here. But let everybody know, once again, how to get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you. Are you open to that? And also give them a rundown of where they can access your books.
I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. It's Henry Kroll, just the old guy with the boats and stuff. And I'm also, my address is actually on my website. You can write me or email me, heykroll@gmail.com. And some of the books are like Philosopher's Stone is no longer available on Amazon. One person told me, so I got to call the publisher and make sure they get it back up on Amazon. But it can be ordered by dialing 1-877 buy book. That's for longevity. It contains recipes developed by Pfizer Pharmaceutical for life extension using the Orm gold and platinum metals, or the minerals that are in certain soils, and also in the Dead Sea salt, Great Salt Lake salt, seawater, and other source items. But you can order it online now.
Yeah, I would encourage people to do that.
They've been
Go ahead.
They've been experimenting with it since the 70s, and Pfizer Pharmaceutical developed these recipes based on alkaline to take it out of different source items. But they were going to make a pill for immortality, and David Hudson had the patents on it. But the government wouldn't let them. They shut them down. But there's under-the-counter or under stuff you can order it online now. There's been experimenting with it for years in Germany and all over, and Japan and other places. It's just you feed the mitochondria within the human body, and they're these little cells you inherit from your mother, and they produce energy in the form of ATP, energy carrier, food and starches. And if you feed them the right material, they can produce enough energy for complete cell division, so you can speed up the process and you don't lose body cells and you don't age. You can actually regress your age to that of a 20-year-old in theory. But you have to get it into the bloodstream somehow. And you can eat any amount of it, but your stomach, you won't absorb much of it because it combines with your hydrochloric acid in your stomach. But they do mix it with distilled water and inject it in a vein to cure cancer and terminally ill patients in various places in Mexico and California and San Diego.
That's fascinating information.
Probably.
Yeah. You're still making the monoatomic, aren't you? Are you still making monoatomic gold, or were you not?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't make it. I can order it offline, but if you know where it is, then you can eat the right foods, you see. And if you don't understand the science where you find it, like a lot of your deserts in the Middle East or Arizona, Nevada, they have it covered with seawater. One time they're oceans, and so all the trace minerals and soil is in there, but you can't grow anything in it. It's too alkaline. But if you look down in a dry wash, you'll see a white band of material.
Exactly. And Henry, we're out of time here. I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and I wish you much success in whatever you're doing over there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight, and chat room, and thank you for the questions. Stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dundry and Mecki coming up next to sail you on into the night from down under, as they always do with their fantastic show. I'm not sure what they're talking about tonight, but stay tuned and you'll find out. All right, everybody, thank you very much. Thank you, Captain Henry Kroll. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. Good night.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed, people working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. It's country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that, just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its program,